Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and with me on the show this week for the third time is Stephanie Smith. You know Stephanie. She's the host of the Dirty Blondes podcast, friend of mine, friend of the show. The last two times she was on this podcast, we talked about the saga of someone she was hooking up with who became her boyfriend. They were living together. Where is that situation at now? Well, spoiler alert, they're still together. They're having threesomes, but only with women. Stephanie would like to be having threesomes with men. The boyfriend is not down. She's figuring out how to negotiate that for herself. Is it fair that they're having threesomes with women that she doesn't want to be having, but she's doing it to make him happy? We're going to find out her feelings on the whole thing. Stephanie created a fake dating app profile, catfished her boyfriend to catch him cheating. I know, right? Wow. She's going to talk about how she did it. She's going to tell the whole story. As with episodes where Stephanie is the guest, you never know where things are going to go. This one is no exception. Trust me. So buckle up. And without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Stephanie Smith.
This week's conversation.
Stephanie Smith, my friend, welcome back to Sex Party for the third time. This is your third appearance on Sex Party. Welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. Hello, Sex Party people. I am doing great. Speaking of sex party, have you ever been to a sex party? I don't ever asked you that.
Yeah. No, I get asked this question randomly, right? And you would think the guy who hosts. I've been to something way back in the day in my hometown. It was deemed a sex party. It was not a sex party. It was just like very disorganized, like sort of a rave kind of a deal. Okay. But people were like fucking in the basement in front of everyone or whatever. It was in like
ecstasy talking, you know.
And back then it was like total ecstasy bullshit, right? But you know, that one ended up actually getting raided by like the DEA or something. Like we like slipped out just before they kicked the doors in, kind of a thing.
Nice.
But I will say, since you asked, that I think my girlfriend and I are going to start, you know, maybe exploring.
Nice.
And like, I'm like, hey, just so you know, we could go and just like chill and have drinks and watch. It isn't like a fucking, you know, and I only know from doing the show, obviously, that how cool and like consent driven and they vet people, right? So it's like you're more safe. You're more, if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to do anything, right? Because her and I have had many talks about our desires and what where we think things might go, but like nothing is for sure. But like and I think it'd be cool for like the party goers, as I've been calling them, right? Yeah. The sex party audience, to like maybe report from the trenches, like, hey, I went to a sex party and here's what happened.
Oh, that's what I want to do. Yeah, because I was only asking because there's a couple sex clubs like a couple towns over from me, and I get their emails all the time. And it's the same thing. It's like members. You have to be a member. They vet you, and you know they take it very seriously about how you dress and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't sure if you had been to one. But I'm like dabbling with that too because I'm like, how can I have a sex podcast and not actually have been to a sex club? Like I feel like a farce.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we probably owe it to the sex and dating culture to like really start putting ourselves on the line. You know, I think that you're right. I think that when you host a sex podcast, and I always try to escape it by being like, well, I'm just the idiot hosting the thing. I'm not an expert, whatever, which is, you know, it's cool. It's fine. But like at some point, I think you will probably have to start accepting more responsibility, more like having these experiences, being like, hey, this happened, this was up, like whatever. So it's funny that you asked that because that was like mid episode in my head for me. But like the last time that you were here, you know, just to give a brief update, like and encapsulate it in one little thing. The last time you were here, You were with this guy. You did want to go to sex parties. You did want to go to like maybe potentially have a threesome, right? Yeah. And you wanted it to be like two men, but you're like, he probably doesn't like that. And now you're saying that you're looking into going to sex parties. So, yeah, like give us an update of what's going on with you, because I think it's fucking perfect timing.
So much is going on. I'm trying to think of when we left off. I don't know if I was fully, like, if we were fully exclusive at that point or whatever, but I mean, we are now, obviously. He was living with me. I mean, it's, that was, that's been forever, but, we are in an open relationship. So we've had some kind of like ups and downs throughout our, this whole thing, because so my boyfriend, he just turned 23. So Koala, if anyone is listening to my podcast, not that I've updated
they know from this podcast though.
Yeah. Well, his name is Danny. I'm just going to come out and say it, since it's like, there is no more anonymity.
Yes.
So him and we are in an open relationship. It's more so because there's just, with sex, not everyone's always on the same page. So we all have like wants and desires and, things along those lines that maybe we, the other partner's not on the same page with or whatever. For me, obviously, I don't give a shit. I'm like balls to the wall, like, let's do whatever, Right. I think for him in the beginning, I think he felt a little scared to tell me certain kind of fetishes he had or kinks or whatever. And I'm like, hello, I have a sex podcast, sir. Like, why are we hiding this here? I told him all about previous guys that I had been with and, some of the requests that they had made or things that they were into, to kind of show him like, look, I still dated these guys after they told me all of these things and nothing fazed me. I think for him, he just had a really bad experience with past kind of like lovers, partners, sexcapades, all of that, where he was embarrassed by, things being outed about him or people making fun of him for things. So I think he thought that like I was going to break up with him or leave him if I found out stuff. So he sometimes like feels more comfortable doing things kind of separately than me, like then incorporating me into it. So we are open, but for the most part, we do just try to like just keep it together, or we'll do a group thing. So we've been getting into the threesome. So that's news since I think I talked to you last. I think I talked about it on my podcast, but not on yours since the update. So him and I have been entertaining the whole threesome thing, which has been kind of fun. For him though, you're right. He is not into the whole guy thing. I think for him, I think it's mostly because he is so protective over me and almost kind of territorial. And it's like, I don't think he likes the idea of seeing another guy fuck me. So, and in his head, it's like the threesome thing is more like he wants all of us to kind of be doing stuff together instead of it just being like two people doing things to one person. So obviously he's not bisexual. So he's not attracted to men. So it's like him watching another guy fuck me is not like fun for him or wouldn't be fun for him. And then he wouldn't want to do anything to another guy if he was in the room. So that's why it's just kind of like, he's like, all right, this isn't really for me. I'm not bisexual. But I mean, I've like, obviously we've brought women over, which has been fine. It's just one of those things though, where like, it's been kind of tricky because some of the women that have come over are also not bisexual. So it's just kind of like, we're not really doing things to each other. And like, I told him, I was like, look, I'll make out with like a girl. Like, I don't care. It's like taking out the trash. Like, I don't want to do it, but I'll do it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not bisexual. So it's like, I'm not really getting any like pleasure or passion out of making out with some girl, but I'll do it if they're a good kisser. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really care. So we've had our ups and downs with kind of like, agreeing on who the third person's going to be and all of that kind of stuff, which has been interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of like what we're doing now. Just to kind of like spice things up. And we have entertained also the whole sex club thing. He, I think, feels a little nervous about it because it's just, I mean, he's only 23. He hasn't like, he's done a lot of stuff. Like he's definitely like, I think he's like out done me in like the sexcapades kind of realm. You know, he's definitely more adventurous, which like I'm pretty adventurous. So, so the fact that he's kind of like stood me up is like, you know, is crazy. But yeah, I think it's just, I think his expectations of a sex club are kind of like that, like, oh, well, we have to do things, or like, it's going to be like, there's all this pressure. And I'm like, no, like you can just go and have drinks and like watch people or like meet people that are like-minded and like not have to do things there. You can go home or, you know, like keep in touch with people. And like, it's not like you're like obligated to like fuck someone right there in front of a crowd of 100 people. I'm like, it's not like that. So,
well, okay, there's a ton there, right? Because I do think the last time you were here, you were sort of itching for a threesome with two guys, like I said before.
Yeah.
And you knew that he probably wouldn't be into it for all the reasons that you stated. But you could tell, like, you guys, like, he was still on dating apps. I think you were not. And there was like some fucking tumultuousness there, right?
Oh yeah, there was sneaking around. Yeah. Like him and I, like at one point we were fighting so bad, like I thought we were going to break up. Like I thought he was just going to be like, I'm done with this. Like I don't like, I'm good.
Right.
Because for me, like I had said to him, this was pre-open relationship conversation. You know, I had said to him, I said, look, like I understand, you know, the circumstances of like, you never really been in a relationship before. And this all kind of just like happening, like, you know, we didn't plan for this to happen. Like when I met him, we were a one night stand. Like I never thought I was going to see him again. And then here we are like a year and a half later and we, you know, have all these snakes together and reptiles and like we live together and like, it's this whole thing, you know? So, I had said to him, I was like, look, like if you want to sleep with other people, like that's fine, but I'm also going to sleep with other people. And he didn't like that. He wanted it to just be open on his end. And I was like, okay, well, like that's not going to fly for me, you know? So like, if you don't want me sleeping with other people, then you shouldn't. But so then he would try to sneak around and he would do shit like that. And like, I would always catch him, you know, I'd always find out like you know, I don't know. I'm just really good at finding out shit or things falling into my lap or, you know, whatever the case is. So I would address things with him and then we would get into fights. And, you know, I just, you know, I said to him, I was like, look, you don't want me sleeping with other people and I don't want you sleeping with other people, you know? So we just finally came to terms of like, all right, if either of us is going to sleep with someone else, we will tell the person. And then additionally, we're only trying to keep it with the threesome situation. Cause it's like, I get it, you know, sex with like, you know, sex can get boring and mundane and like repetitive when you get into a routine and you're working all the time and you're busy. And like with me, I've had so much on my plate as far as like a regular life update. I got a DUI last December and I've been dealing with all of that shit. I essentially got fired from my job because of it. And I started working somewhere else. I've had like lawsuits going on. I like, you know, it's like one thing after another, especially with the DUI shit. It's like, there's so much, it's not lose your license. You know, you have to do all of this like state mandated therapy, whether it's like individual sessions or group sessions or, you know, I mean, it never stops. So
yeah,
the last like 5 or 6 months for me have been insane. So it's like hard to, you know, satisfy each other when we're both exhausted from work. I'm constantly either on the phone with my new boss and getting settled in my new job, or I was doing real estate school at night for a month. You know, so it was crazy. So I'm like, I get that you want to like be adventurous and do other things and whatever, but I'm like, just don't fucking lie about it. I'm like, I get more pissed about the lying than just like you being upfront about what you want to do or who you want to sleep with or whatever. I'm like, just tell me, like, please just tell me and then I will be okay. Like,
yeah. Okay. So three things that I have. Number one, and do you want to tell the story about the DUI, how you got the DUI? If you do not want to tell the story, you do not have to, but like the circumstances behind why that happened. That's my first question.
Yeah, I can talk about it. Yeah, basically I was just leaving a Christmas party and I was 2 miles from my house and I thought that I could get home. And I did not get home. I ended up, if you know, I had bariatric surgery, so I had been drinking a lot and I didn't really eat that much. And it was late and I, again, thought I could drive home. I've done the drive a million times. and I ended up crashing into a car that was like parallel parked on the side of the road. And I totaled my car, and then obviously I was arrested because I failed the field sobriety test on the scene, and then I was arrested, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah,
so that was my DUI story.
And you made a special cameo appearance in the Christmas special, right? And your hand was all fucked up from the DUI, right? So everybody can
yes, it's better now. My finger is it's still a little swollen, but not horrible.
Well, I'm just glad that they're just glad that you're okay. That was the first question of 3. The second question is, what was the conversation like, right? Like the open relationship conversation. Did you have like, hey, we're going to have an open relationship and try to keep it to like just threesomes? Or did you still have like go back and forth? Like, I want 2 cocks involved. I know you don't, but like, what was that like?
So we've had multiple conversations, and we're constantly checking in with each other, because it is one of those things where it's like, we think sometimes either of us will think that we're okay with something, and then something actually comes up, and then we're like, oh, we're not okay with it, or we need to kind of like pivot and adjust or relook at the terms or the rules. So initially it came up because I had found out that he was trying to sleep with someone. And he wasn't telling me about it, but we weren't in an open relationship at this point. So it would have been him just trying to cheat on me. And so what I did was I made a fake account and on Tinder, and I matched with him. And then I texted him from my work phone number and like tried to get the ball rolling. So he thought he was texting someone else, and he was texting me. And then I sent him a selfie of me. And so we had a long conversation that night about all of this. And we kind of like came up with our terms. Very toxic way about going about it, but that was the reality of it. And so we made the terms up then, and then they've evolved a lot since then. Again, just because of various things that we're like, oh, we think this is going to work for us. And then we're like, oh, nope, this doesn't, this isn't going to fly. Like for him, he really just does not want me to sleep with other people. He wants me to be a part of threesomes with him or only sleep with him. And I'm like, look, like, I get that, like, but it's like, I also too don't like you sleeping with other people. But I think it's the difference between how men and women see sex. Like for him, it's just like scratching an itch. It's something different. It's something new with someone that he's just using for sex. He's not trying to date them. He's not trying to have an emotional relationship with them. It's literally just something that's like different. And I think for him, he thinks that I'm going to sit there and like fall in love with these guys that I potentially would sleep with, which is not the case. Like girls can have sex that way too, if they're in that mindset, So it's, that's been, that was an argument for a while, of just like, just being fair in the open relationship, cause he did not think that it should be equal. It should just be him, reaping the benefits essentially. So we've had many conversations. We still do, because we do have, dating apps still. Like all of my apps on my phone are all for us. They're like those couple accounts that like we're looking for a third and, whatever. So, so it's like as things come up, because like at first, like, he wasn't cool with doing a threesome with another guy, but now like we have a lot of other couples that reach out to us. We haven't explored the whole couple thing yet, but that's something where he's like, oh, I don't know. Like, cause he's like, I'm not attracted to guys. I'm like, well, you don't have to do something with the other guy. Like that guy doesn't want to do something with you. Like they just want to either like fully swap or watch us or us watch them. Or I'm like, there's all these different rules and expectations. So I'm like, if it's something you want to entertain, we can, so we haven't really gone down that whole route yet. But like at one point it was no couples because it was no guys in the room. Then it was like, oh, like we can entertain couples. So like, it's constantly a topic of conversation of like what we're okay with. So it's not just like a black and white, like these are the rules and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and especially towards the end of season 1 into season 2 of this podcast, I've gotten into more of non-monogamy and swinging and like all of the things. And it is, it's a negotiation constantly. It's a constant like check-in or whatever. And the jealousy is still there. It's just that if you choose to live that lifestyle or do those things randomly, you have to decide what you're going to do with your jealousy. But before we get to any of that, because that is all amazing things I want to talk to you about, because you're actually going through it right now. And I think like, if anybody's listening or watching that's like thinking about it or even just fucking curious, like we hit something. But I want to jump back real quick. You created a fake Tinder profile.
Yes.
To catfish your boyfriend.
Yes.
Okay. Please start at the beginning. Did you use like his preference of like, how did you do this? How did you know that you would get him to match with you? Was it fun? What? Tell me everything.
Well, okay. So the time that we actually exchanged phone numbers was the first time that he actually knew that I catfished him. But I had catfished him other times when I was speculating that because he kept telling me he wasn't like trying to match with people and whatever. And I'm like, bullshit. So I had made several other accounts prior, but I never exchanged phone numbers with him because he never knew my work phone number. I had a separate cell phone with my, like for a work phone number that was paid for by the company that I was working at the time. So he didn't know that number. So that way it wasn't coming up as like a fake like text, you know, those like secondary numbers.
But you're using like random pictures from the internet or how did you?
So a girl I went to college with, yeah, in some cases it was like random influencers that I would find. I'm like, all right, well, like he's not going to fucking know them. So like I would pick ones that were like in California or like some shit because we're in Florida. And a friend of mine that I went to college with, who I'm like no longer actually friends with really. I was going through because she has all beautiful friends. So I'm like, all right, let me go through some of her friends that he wouldn't know that I can, you know, snag 3 pictures from to make it look kind of real. So I found this like, you know, very like Instagram-y girl that was like, but the pictures looked like they were real pictures. It wasn't like, oh, that she paid someone to do a photo shoot for her or something like that. And I matched with him and yeah. And then I just like kept the conversation going enough. And he was like, oh, let's exchange phone numbers. So I'm like, okay. So I gave him my work phone number because obviously he didn't know it was my work number. And then he wanted to FaceTime because he told me after the fact that he thought something was sketchy about it. He was like, it just seemed too good to be true. Like, you know, like you were so quick to be like, oh yeah, like let's hang out and blah, 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 blah. Cause I didn't want to beat around the bush. I'm like, I'm not trying to make this a whole fucking month-long interaction. Like, I just want to get to the point, you know? Mm-hmm. So I had said to him, yes, we can FaceTime later. Cause he was at work at the time and so was I. And then I think he had tried to call me and I didn't answer because it was from like a block number or something. And I knew it was going to be him. So I didn't answer. And then he sent me a selfie and he's like, you should send me one too. And I said, okay, like you get ready, you know, I hope you're prepared. And he was like, I'm ready. So I sent him a selfie of me giving him the finger and he was going to move out that night. And that wasn't even my intention. Like my intention of all of this was to get to the bottom of what was going on, you know, because I had speculated a lot of things and I was putting pieces of things together, but I didn't have the full story. So even though I went about it in a very toxic way, I felt like I had to because I gave him many opportunities to tell me the truth and he was just scared to tell me the truth. And he was, you know, and that night when he got home and we did talk about everything, he did come clean about so much stuff. And you know, everything like made sense. And it was, you know, we were in a much better place after that. And I feel like that's how we always have been, like up until even recently, like any fight or argument that we have, because it always ends up being about like some type of like sex related thing of like, we're either not having enough sex for me or he's, you know, flirting with too many girls on Instagram or, you know, just there's always something. There's always some jealousy thing happening because I'm batshit crazy. But yeah, like every time we have an argument or a fight, it's like we do end up becoming closer. And it's like, I think it's just our communication has gotten better because I see things one way and I don't take into his reasoning or needs into account sometimes and vice versa. So now we're very like, we get each other. So it's like all these fights have been really annoying and it's been a rough couple months sometimes, like depending on what's been going on. But I think it's been for the best because now we're like more secure than ever. So even though I don't like fighting and doing the whole catfishing and all of that shit, like it was annoying to have to do it, but I'm like, whatever, it like worked out in the end, I guess.
So how many times did you catfish him on Tinder? Was it just what?
Well, it was like Tinder, Bumble. Like there was a couple different apps because I always would see the apps go off on his phone. So I think I did like one per app, like because I was like, all right, let me see if he's like really active on these apps. But like sometimes I would just like I wouldn't even try to match with him. Like I would just like go on to see if he was on there, you know, to see what his profile said or you know whatever. So he doesn't know about all those times. He just knows about the time that I texted.
Oh, so you guys only matched one time, and the other times you're like,
no,
oh
we
look.
Matched, we matched the other times, but I just didn't keep the conversation going because I was like, well, like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this information.
So the time that you guys matched and you sent him the middle finger picture, right? Was that
we had been matched for like 24 hours.
But was that the first time that he knew that you had done this catfishing, or did he? Oh, you said he didn't know about the other times.
Yeah, he didn't know about the other times. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he probably will now if he listens to your show. He doesn't even listen to my podcast, so I'm not like super concerned.
Yeah,
I know like
some
of his family actually listens to my podcast, which is fucking hilarious. But I don't know if they're also your listeners as well. But they might tell him, which whatever. I don't really give a shit.
Sure. So how did you know? Like you just created a profile with pictures based on what you think he would think is hot, and then put yourself within a mile of like, well, how did you like go about doing that?
Yeah, I would always log on like when I was at work, so it wasn't like, oh, under a mile away, because like we lived in the same house, so like I had to be like smart about it. And then I mean like luckily, Instagram has made their, like, if you follow someone, it's chronological order now again. So I like will look at who he follows and like, trust me, some of these girls are not cute. And I'm like, I literally said that to him one time. I'm like, can you at least like pick better girls, or can I help you like pull some of these girls? Because I'm like, you're not doing a very good job. I'm like, some of these girls are not cute. But like, in any case, he gets like mad when I say that. But I would like look at like the general overtone of like, okay, like, cause I know he likes blonde hair, blue eyes, like, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I would always just try to find like some generic bitch that had like big tits and blonde hair and looked cute in an Instagram photo. And I'm like, perfect. That's going to be good enough for this little random profile. And then I would just delete it, you know, after we matched or, you know, whatever. Or if I just saw that he was like active on the site. But yeah, it's very different now. There is really no sneaking around because like we've had many conversations about the whole sneaking around thing. I said, look, there's no point in being in an open relationship if like we're going to sneak around. I was like, it just defeats the purpose. Like, you know, I was like, I don't like the idea of you sleeping with other people, but I understand that you have other needs that I can't necessarily meet, and that's fine. However, like, don't fucking lie to me about it, because it just is going to make me not believe anything that you say, you know. And there has been times that I have questioned him about things since all of these conversations. And he's even said to me, he's like, I hate that you can't trust me. And I know that it's my own fault. And I should have just told you from the start. And, you know, all of these types of things. So he realizes how important it is just to be truthful and honest and transparent about everything. So we are definitely on the same page now. And I did sleep with someone else at one point. I only slept with one person because for me, I didn't think that he would understand how I was feeling unless I put him in my shoes. Because he was so against me sleeping with other people, and he wanted to be able to do what he wanted, but he knew I wasn't talking to other people or like entertaining it. So one day I kind of caught wind that he was going to go sleep with someone else and he wasn't going to tell me. So I was like, I told him, I said, I think I'm going to make plans after work, like, since you don't want to have sex tonight, because he was just trying to say he was tired. And I'm like, bullshit. So I deleted our Bumble account, like the pictures and stuff, and I switched it over so it was just for me. And I matched with like a ton of guys in like 4 hours. Like it was like, it didn't take any effort on my part. And I found a guy that was available like after work. I was like, I have a boyfriend. I'm just trying to fuck you. Like, are you free at 6? And he was like, yeah, I am. I was like, perfect. Like, I will be there. So I hooked up with the guy, and then it came up, like a day or two later. He confirmed with me like, oh, did you actually sleep with someone? And I said, yeah, I did. And he was dead silent. Like he was going through it mentally, like processing all of it, because again, I had never slept with anyone else outside of us. And he, he didn't like it, obviously. And I said to him, I was like, for the record, I was like, I didn't even enjoy it. Like, the guy was a horrible kisser. He wasn't that great in bed. It wasn't the best circumstance. But I was like, I literally did it as a fuck you because I knew that you were going to sleep with someone else. And I was like, I also wanted you to feel what I feel. I was like, I'm like, obviously I don't like the fact that like you're going to sleep with these random girls, and I was like, it just sucks. So I was like, now you have a taste of your own medicine, and since then we've only been doing threesomes, and he has been trying to like, I'm not saying that he's not entertaining other girls. Like, he's still like following random hoes on Instagram and whatever, but he hasn't met with any of them, So I think now that he sees how much it sucks and like how shitty of a feeling it is, that he's like, okay, I'm going to try to respect her more. And like, it's coming from a different place, like where he understands it instead of just, oh, she's just being dramatic and whatever,
Right.
It's a lot to unpack.
No,
but this
is but this is exactly what I thought. I mean, I knew there'd be a lot, but this is amazing because there are a lot of things in here that maybe people do to each other in their relationships. They don't, maybe they take it to even further extremes. Maybe they don't take it to the extremes that you took it to, right? Or he took it to, which is great because now we can talk about it, right? And and I love that I've always loved how honest you are about everything. It not only makes for like a great podcast guest, right? But it makes for like a great friend too. So
yeah.
That's amazing. So, okay. How long ago was it where you went and fucked the other dude?
It was probably, so it's what, May now? It was probably like, I want to say like March maybe. So It wasn't like that long ago. I mean, like some of our issues were like pretty recent, yeah. I mean, we had like him and I mean, our compatibility is great. Like when we're home together, like we're together. If we're not working, we're together all the time. Which, I mean, some people think that's unhealthy and whatever, but it's like we spend our days off together if we have, an overlapping day. We go to the gym together. We cook together. Like, we don't even have the TV on when we're home. Like, I can't tell you the last time we put the TV on because the entire time we're together, we're just like talking and chatting. And I mean, we have enough to talk about. So it's like the emotional side of things is there, but it's just like the sex thing because there's specific, needs and fetishes and kinks and things that like I said, I can't necessarily like give or whatever, like there's just, or sometimes people just want something that's different, and that's okay. But, it's for me, I said to him, I was like, I never cared if you wanted to sleep with other people. I said, it's more the lying to me about it or not explaining why, like, cause it's like, am I bad in bed? Like, do you think I'm bad in bed? Because I was like, I know I'm not because I have a track record that says otherwise. But I'm like, what can I do to help you? You know what I mean? Like, figure this out. Like, is it something that it's me or is it a you thing or what's holding us back? So we've had these really tough conversations. And for him, again, he's only 23. So, and he's never really been in a long-term relationship like this before. And he has never lived with anyone at the length. I mean, we've lived together for a year now. And, so a lot of this was new to him. And he was just like, I don't know how to handle this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, so he was just constantly in his head of like, I'm, out in left field here and I don't know how to not fuck this up. Cause he's like, I don't want to lose you. But at the same time, like, I also like need to have my needs met and whatever. So it's like, it was a lot of really tough conversations.
Okay. Yeah. So on the topic of of him having his needs met. Okay. So he has to have his needs met. So what does it look like today? Is it you guys are having and like setting up like semi-regular threesomes? You're just kind of like, oh, okay, this bitch, whatever. But and is he still going off and having side quests with side bitches or?
So he hasn't. The last time, whenever I slept with the guy, the one guy that I slept with, that was the last day that he slept with someone else too, because I knew that he was going to sleep with someone that day.
Okay.
And so that's why I was just like, fuck you, I'm going to do it on my own too. You know what I mean? It was like a tit for tat kind of thing. So I think for him, his mentality is if I was ever to go fuck someone else, he would then just fuck someone out of spite because he is a tit for tat person and he's spiteful. I'm not. Like, I wouldn't just like be like, oh, I'm going to hit up some guy because he's going out to fuck some girl. Like, I have too much going on to like worry about that. So, but because that's his mentality, I think that he has been trying to behave and not do these little like side quests and, and whatever. So we are trying to keep it just between us or adding a third or potentially a couple. Like we've talked about the couple thing, which we're open to. We just haven't like done anything with a couple yet. So we have dating profiles. So we're constantly like trying to find people to bring to the table, but it's tough out there because it's like people on dating apps are flaky enough. And then you get involved with like being a tripod, which is like, two's company, three's a crowd. Someone's always left out. And, people are just flaky. It's like some of these girls that we've met, it's like, unless you're like nailing it down that day, the next day they're like, then they have second thoughts or like they're not really feeling it or they're scared or, whatever the case is. So there's all these different things that come into play. So it's really not that easy finding a third. And that's why I said to him, I was like, I think we just need to start going to some of these sex clubs or, whatever. Cause I'm like, at least it's like-minded people. Even if we don't find someone that night, like at least it's just, we can start going there regularly, even if it's like once a week or every other week, just to like mingle with people. Cause I'm like, all these people on the apps, it's such a pain in the ass. Like it's real. I mean, it's not easy because we constantly are starting group chats with these people and, chatting with them and whatever. And then it's like, they just fall off. Like this one girl was so ready to like hang out with us. And then all of a sudden she just like ghosted us, but like, she still follows us on Instagram and interacts with our shit. And I'm like, okay, like I've tried to reach out to her. I'm like, hey, how have you been? Like, whatever. And nothing. And I'm like, all right, I guess she got scared or whatever, which is fine. I mean, people are entitled to change their minds, but it's just like the process of finding a third is not easy.
No, it's exhausting. And then, I feel like I want to ask this question, and so I'm going to ask it, but, I don't have to tell you to be honest, but because you will, which is great. But I think what anyone listening to this, especially with the women, are probably wondering is your hope of like going to a sex club or getting another couple involved that then somehow you can ease him into you having sex with another man, right? Or him and another man or some sort of something, because if he's getting his needs met and you're not, that would seem like a logical way to like maybe do that eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that is a subconscious kind of like goal of mine, because I think for him, again, it's not, he's not bisexual, but, so I think for him, it's just kind of like, well, what do I do with this other guy in the room? Like, if I'm not doing anything to him, like what is supposed to happen here? So it's like, and I think also too, he doesn't know, maybe I'm speaking for him. Like, I don't know if this is a fact, but like, I feel like, it's one thing to sit there and say, oh yeah, I'm okay with you sleeping with someone else, or I'd be fine with it. But then when you see it happening, or you're in the moment, or you're actually like challenged with, okay, this is going to happen, how are you going to react? So like if we were in a sex club and some guys, in his head, before we go to the sex club, if he's like, okay, yeah, you can fuck another guy. If I'm there, it's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But then in the moment when he sees another guy fucking me, like he might not react the same way. He might be like, get the fuck off her. Or like, there could be chaos, So a lot of times people put themselves like in a situation of like, okay, would I be okay with this or would I not be? But until you're in it, sometimes like you don't really know how you're going to react. So I think that's kind of how it is with him, with another guy in the room. Like if it's another couple, most couples are not trying to they're trying to full swap with like the opposite gender. Like it wouldn't be the same gender. Yeah. So like the male in the other relationship would want to fuck me, whereas the woman in the other relationship would want to fuck him. And then the women, obviously all guys want to see their girlfriends and another girl make out, whatever. Sure. So that's fine. But it's like, it's never been a conversation about the two guys doing anything. But I think for him, it's just more like, well, what do I do with the guy? Like, what, like if he's just there, like, what, like we're just supposed to like jerk off together or like, what, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a weird, like, I think he's just like, I've never been in that situation, so I don't know how I'm going to handle it.
I mean, I feel like he's getting really hung up on that. It sounds like, and again, like, yes, you're speaking for him, but like you don't do any, I mean, if you don't want to, you don't do shit with the other guy. Like, and
like I said to him, I was like, there's some people that just sit there and like want to be voyeurs and just watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was like, I was like, there's been couples where like the guys, like the guy will be like, I don't want to do anything. Like, I just want to watch all of you guys.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, so it's, again, it's situational, but yeah, I think he is getting a little hung up on the, like, what do I do with this other straight man in the room? Like,
well, this is my point, and I'm always gonna fucking tell it to you like it is and how I see it and whatever. And more so with you because we're friends, but like, so with you're having these threesomes with other women that you're not attracted to, right? And you're not saying like, well, I'm not attracted to women. What do I do with this other woman? You just do it to make him happy. So like,
right. That's why I said taking out the trash. It's like, I don't like taking out the trash, but I will
right.
take it out.
And you're not asking him to do anything with the other guy. You're just asking like for potentially your wants is like, yeah, each of you would have sex with me. You guys don't have to do anything with each other. And yet he won't even, but yet he's doing the opposite when it comes to, so let's gotta like, does that make you like frustrated? Does it make you angry?
Oh, it 100% does, because you nailed it. Because it's like, again, it's like, I'm the one typically sacrificing and being out of my comfort zone for the greater good of the sexual part of our relationship. And for him, it's like, he chalks it up to like it being so specific and I always say, I'm like, it's always about you. I'm like, cause every fight that we have where it's like, we're not on the same page, because there's been girls that he's like, oh, I found this girl that like wants to come over. And I'm like, she's disgusting. I don't want to like have her in my house, and, for various reasons and like, whatever, it's like, or I'm like, I don't like vibe with her. Like, she doesn't even want to talk to me in the group chat or like, random things. And I'm like, no, and then he gets all bent out of shape and he's like, we don't have anyone else like that's willing to come over. Like, can't you just suck it up? And I'm like, why do I have to suck it up? Like, why can't you just suck it up? Like, so it's like, that has been a basis of some of the fights that we've had for sure. For me, like, I don't know. I've always like found it hot of like masculine guys together. Like, even if it's making out, like I used to watch gay porn, like when I was younger. I'm not a big porn watcher now, but like, when I was younger, I definitely would like find like, like the more masculine, like jock daddy, like bear kind of porn. Cause I don't know. I always found it like something that was like kind of hot of like these two masculine guys like, together. So I told him, I said like, look, if you ever are considering it, like I will not like bat an eye. Like, I'm like, I know you're not, but I'm like, I'm just throwing it out there. Cause like my ex was bi. So I was just kind of like, it's something that like I'm used to and like, it is what it is. So I told him, I was like, if you're ever thinking of it, like, that's fine. But I was like, I also don't expect you to like sleep with these guys. But yeah, I mean, my needs are definitely put on the back burner in the threesome category for now, just because it's been so difficult. I mean, ideally, we would love to find a woman that likes both of us and, wants to have fun with both of us. But for now, we really haven't found that. We have entertained like a couple trans women before. So that's been, I feel like, more mutually beneficial, I guess, to both of us, because it's, it's a different dynamic.
Sure.
But that also can be like difficult because a lot of trans women aren't into cis women. So that's like, that can kind of be a little dicey, but yeah, that's something that we have entertained. And there are more trans women that are into cis women than I thought.
Sure.
I thought it was going to be a no-go because I was like, oh, I don't know, like if if they're really even into cis women, but there are some that like are bisexual that we've met. So that's been something too that we've entertained also.
Okay, so when you say entertained, do you guys have done stuff with trans women? Or
yeah. Oh yeah, I've like had sex with trans women. Yeah.
So is he participating in that as well, or is he? So he's okay with that, but
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
because it's different, because it's like, it's not, it's not like just some like masculine guy that like could look like him or be an equal to him. It's not for him. I think it's like, it's almost like, I think it's like a replacement thing. It's like, oh, I don't want you to be like, I don't want to be replaced.
Yeah.
I think that's how anyone feels in a relationship of like, okay, like, yeah, if you have kinks and fetishes and, desires of like, physical desires of, what you the opposite of what you are, it's like, okay, that's like a little bit more understandable. But when you like want to fuck someone that looks exactly like the person that you're dating, that's like, oh, well, why am I not good enough? Like, why do you want to fuck someone that looks exactly like me? You know? So I think for him, I think that's part of the reason why, but it's like, well, like in his head, I think he's like, I'm a straight guy. So like, why am I not enough? You know what I mean? So it's,
but reverse engineer that. That's not fair. That's not fair to you at all. First of all, like that's first and foremost, like not fair, right? When we talked about this a little bit before, and it does sound like you're making progress, right? Like with this, and I think that you will, right? Or I think that you'll. I don't know. Knowing you, like you could pull a whole like a 180 and be like, and then and the next update, it's like, hey, everything has changed and this is what we're doing, whatever.
100%. It's you know me. I posted some meme the other day on my Instagram. It was like a text conversation that like went viral with some person, and they were like, you're never going to guess what happened. And the person responded with, bitch, with you, I have no idea. Yeah. And everyone was like, that literally is you. Because like no one ever knows what's going on in my life, because I always drop these massive bombs of like, oh, by the way, this is happening, or this is happening.
All right.
So yeah, I'm used to that. So
okay. So and just to be basic podcast guy and ask the basic podcast questions for the audience, for myself too. So these trans women, are they pre-op? Are they post-op? Do they have a penis? Like, what is that? What's going on? Because I feel like that's going to tell us a lot in this story about, because that's very interesting that you said that he just doesn't want someone around that resembles him, that there maybe there's some sort of jealousy there, that like another straight white dude or something or whatever. So I want to ask that question.
These women, so these trans women are, I would say pre-op. I don't know if they're getting operations. Like I
don't
get into the logistics of that. Yeah. So like I'm saying pre-op, but that, they might not be getting an operation at all. But they are transitioned though, in the sense like they look like women, but they are physically still have a penis. Yeah. So yeah.
And I don't even know if I'm using like the right terminology. That's how basic this is, but this is great because we want to explore these things. The other question that I wanted to ask is you mentioned that your ex was bi and you're used to, so with your ex, were you having guy sex where all of y'all were having sex with each other?
No. So with my ex, it was kind of a weird situation in the sense of him and I were long distance. I would say like 90% of our relationship. So him and I, we met in Florida. I was a freshman in college. He was 20 years older than me. And he then moved back. He was from New Jersey originally, but from a different part of New Jersey than I was from. We were on opposite ends of the state. So even when I would go home, I would never see him really, because one, my relationship was a secret because we were 20 years apart and my parents were paying my bills. And, I couldn't just be like, hey, I'm dating this guy who's 40 something. Like it just was like, not like, I just was not going to share it with them. My parents would not have been okay with that. So we saw each other very minimally, but he was very like, I'm bi. He was into trans women. He kind of was the one who opened my eyes to a lot of things sexually, especially like in the BDSM world. I didn't really know a whole lot about it prior to meeting him. And he was the one who kind of went into like the daddy dom thing and dom sub and just kind of exploring all different things in the sexual world. So he was the one who really opened my eyes to a lot of that. He shared experiences that he had with men to me. And I just always kind of found that attractive because he was very much a macho guy too. Like he was, imagine like Ray Liotta in his prime when he was alive. Like that was very much like how my ex was. Like he was very like Goodfellas, like New York accent,
masculine,
Italian looking. He wasn't Italian, but he looked Italian, like, was like a wise guy, like that's how he was. So when he would start to tell me and share that he was, he was bisexual and he was into men, and he would share these stories and experiences that he had and whatever, like, I just found it really hot. And that's kind of where the whole gay porn thing came into play. And I was like, oh, like, I like the fact that masculine men are together. So for me, with my current boyfriend, like, that's why I said to him, I'm like, I know you're not bisexual. And I know that like you are, you aren't attracted to men that look like you, and that's fine. But like, if you ever want to, like, I'm not going to care. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to actually encourage it and ask to watch probably. So that's the history of that.
Yeah, no, totally. So you weren't masturbating to a masculine gay porn before your ex. You sort of discovered that with your ex.
Not that I recall.
Sure.
Not that I recall.
Yeah.
It was more like he had because then it was like more realistic for me. Like even because porn is like fucking so fake and stupid and cheesy half the time.
Yeah.
So at least like I could be like, oh, well, like he kind of looks like him, or like, oh, he told me this story and this like porn kind of matches that storyline, or like whatever the case was.
Yeah.
Like it was just, so that, it opened my eyes to that aspect of it. So, and also too, like gay porn to me wasn't weird because I was like, oh, well, I like penis and now there's two penises involved. So like, why not watch it?
No, it sounds like you were coming to it from a real raw, like carnal kind of a place from inside where you're like, oh, something I like, something I also like. And you weren't like factoring in maybe some of the other stuff that like people factor in, like, and you also had, the knowledge of like your ex and his experiences or whatever too. And in porn, like it is so cheesy and it is so like hard to believe. Right. And you bring up a really good point because even with my porn habits, I will constantly like find some wild ass shit, some corny ass, like fucking stupid scenario, gangbang, bukkake bullshit. Right. But then I always like have to make it real somehow. So I take like the most crazy shit ever, but then like I'll put up a picture or pictures of like, someone I'm into at the time or a girlfriend or like whatever. Right. And I think that people don't really talk about that enough, that like, you can get into some of the wilder shit in your head and with porn if you somehow find a way to mix that sort of like fantasy with reality.
See, that's why when I was younger, I didn't really watch porn. Like I'm talking like middle school, high school age. Like I really read sex stories like that, like literotica.com was like my tried and true website that I was always on because for me reading it, cause it's like, I don't, for a lot of people when they're masturbating, they want a quick in and out, like, obviously video is like quicker, it's more visual, whatever. But like for me, reading the story was kind of like the long game and I could like, fantasize differently, like than actually seeing someone, you know what I mean? Because when you see it visually, it's like, yes, it's quicker and you get to the end goal faster a lot of the times. But also too, it's like distracting because it's like, oh, it's not, I can't really like, it doesn't feel as close to home, you know what I mean? Whereas like if you're reading a story, then you can make up all the characters in your head and, it's a little different. So for me, I always preferred that versus like video porn, when I was younger and then whatever, then I switched it up. I still, I'll still do both, but
and that's crazy too. And I don't think I've ever talked about it. Well, maybe once or twice on the show, but there's something about reading sexual shit, right? So like like one, a lot of times like I love nudes, right? I think they're great to get sent nudes, whatever. But like in the past, I've had particularly women that I've dated send me like text, like, like we're like sexting and she's like saying, oh, this is happening. This is what I'm doing. And like, I have like screenshot that and then like jerked off to that for years to come. Right. Yeah. There's something we're reading. And then online, if you find like stories or fan fiction, for me, it's cool. And I've been in those situations too, where I'm like, wow, this is like really hot. I'm reading this story about fucking whoever. But I'm like, wait a minute. I feel like a dude wrote this. So then at that point for me, it becomes like, oh, fuck, God damn it. But there is something to read. It's a different kind of turn on. It's like wine versus beer, right? It's a different kind of drunk.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's funny because it's like, there are a lot of like, especially on like Lit Erotica, or there's another website called Nifty. Nifty is like definitely a little, it's definitely more on the illegal side of things of like things that are not like legal in every state. Like they really, they touch
in
on
every state.
Well, some states it's definitely legal, especially here. But like, it's like, there's definitely weird shit that's posted. So I'm like, that you have to filter. It's like a dumpster fire. You got to filter through it a little bit more. But some of the the authors of these stories are very well written. So it's like you really get into it, and they have these multi-part series, and it's a whole thing where some of them are just like dabbling in it because they're like trying to probably jerk off while they type it. So it's like not as entertaining, or it's like you get to the end of the story and you're like, well, that sucked, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like if you're, and for the long game, or like need a little bit like less like visual of like this person looks like this, like it's fun. I've always loved that.
Well, you can describe emotions in a way that forces you to imagine what their face looks like, or like what that feels, and psychologically. The psychological aspect of sex is like the whole reason why I started this podcast. So like and also like Tumblr back in the day used to be the OG shit for fucking.
Oh my God. I literally was just having this conversation the other day with someone. I was like, do you remember when before Yahoo bought Tumblr, and you would see like, like aesthetic pictures, you would see some fucking anime, like porn shit of like, that was probably not legal in the country. You would see like random other stuff. You'd see a butthole then. Like you would see like it was just so crazy scrolling through Tumblr, because you just, it's like kind of like Twitter now. Like if you like end up following some people on Twitter, like because so many people put their OnlyFans stuff up there and whatever. Yeah. And it's like you start to see random shit and you're like, oh, like that's I was not expecting to see someone's asshole right now, but okay, cool. Like I could never open Tumblr like in public, because I was like, I never know what the fuck's gonna come up on my screen.
Yeah, and like their erotica stories, their fan fiction stories were like always like really, really, really high. And for a minute there, it looked like Pornhub was gonna buy Tumblr, but they
should have.
Yahoo got it.
Tumblr sucks now. I mean, it's like I get emails because I still have an account, and they're like, we haven't seen you in like years. I'm like, yeah, because Yahoo fucked it up and made it family friendly. The whole reason people used Tumblr was to like make their aesthetic little like board, and then also have like weird porn shit. Like that was that was Tumblr in a nutshell.
Okay, so let's close off your story for this episode. You're definitely coming back for more episodes in the future, but like what's next in the big negotiation, right? What's the next step with you and your boyfriend in terms of getting your needs met? Are you leaning more towards a sex party? Do you think it will be another couple? Where are you putting, if you were to bet on one, what would it be? And what's the strategy? Like,
I don't really know. I mean, like we're still actively just trying to find people to engage in threesomes with us. So that's kind of just like been my focus for the time being. I have just been getting really frustrated with it, because I'm like, I keep bringing all these people to the table, they fall off, or like, whatever, for whatever reason, something happens and then it never follows through, or it doesn't follow through as often as we would want. And so I kept trying to say, I'm like, let's go to these sex clubs. So like, that's kind of like the next thing on my like list, because one, I want to do it just to do it. Like, I just want to go and experience it and, just like see the vibe. And, there's a couple, like I said, in the area of where I live. So I'm like, all right, like, let's just like fucking go, like what's worst comes to worst, we leave if we're not having a good time, or if the people are weird or whatever. But I'm like, let's just try it at least. Because to me, I was like, we're going to have more success with like-minded people versus, like random people on an app that are just like bored and like, okay, like I'll come over. And then they're like, nope, I'm good. So I think that's my next plan. But I mean, every day, like, I feel like something comes up or something else is like uncovered or whatever. So I literally just take it day to day. I try not to plan too far ahead, because that gets me nowhere, I have found.
I have to ask you, because everyone will beat me up if I don't, and drag me through the streets, right? Will we see a return of your podcast, Dirty Blondes?
Yes. So the reason I have not updated it was because of the whole DUI thing, and I've just had like 10 million things going on. I do plan on releasing new episodes soon. I just have not, I have not gotten around to it, but things are kind of slowing down at work a little bit. In Florida, like the summer is dead here. So I'm hoping that I can get ahead and have you back on the show, and Desiree and Susan and all of, like all of our guests that we have. We should do it, honestly, a panel. Honestly, I feel like we should
no. I suggested that. I suggested that to Desiree, and she was like, "Oh my god!" So like, we should do that. I'm totally down. I'm down for I'm down for whatever. So yeah, no, I just had to ask because I miss your podcast, and
I know, I do too. It's been awful. Like I was so glad. Like when we were messaging the other day, I was like, you know what? I'm like, fuck it. I'm like, let me just do this because I'm like, I miss podcasting.
Yeah.
I just haven't had time to edit or like write episodes or all of that stuff. But
For sure.
I'm always happy to be a guest.
Well,
but,
but you have a ton.
I definitely. The podcast it's not ended. A lot of people are like, oh, you ended it. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, I needed a break. I needed to get my like legal shit in order.
Yeah,
before I start going down this path again.
You have to have your fucking life in order somewhat to like, you're dealing with a lot right now, but I look forward to it coming back. I look forward to being a fucking guest on your show. To close this episode off, we're going to play a game. This game, I played it in the Valentine's Day special. I'm going to start talking slower so you can plan your strategy. So this game is called Liar Liar. Last time I played it, it went disastrous. I'm going to, for the YouTube viewers, I'm going to look in the camera. I'm going to make a statement to you. It's something sexual. You're going to have to look at my face. You have to listen to my voice. For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, just listen to my voice. And you're going to tell me if I'm telling the truth or if I'm a liar. So right? Okay. So true, false, whatever. And then when I'm done, right? And you should be thinking of like your strategy, your story right now. You're going to tell me something sexual, right? And I'm going to tell you whether you're telling the truth or you're a liar. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go first. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. I once asked a sexual partner to make dinosaur noises while I had sex with her from behind. Am I a liar? Or is that true?
I'm going to say true.
Okay, so it's false, but it was
a dog noise.
It was a dog. Oh my God. How did you know you were that close? You were that fucking close. That's great. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you were so close, right? At the last second, I'm like, I switched it to, because every good lie has a truth in it, right? So like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always my strategy. So you missed it, but like you were that close. You got it after the fact. Yeah. So 1 point for well, no, not really, because I don't know, 0 points.
Yeah, I was wrong. You were right. Like you were.
But if I fuck up now, then we'll be, you know what I mean? Then so whatever. We haven't figured out the point system, so. So whatever. Well, whatever. This is a sex party. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever. There's no prizes for this. It's just bragging rights.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of a scenario here. Let's see. Hopefully your editor can cut out the dead air time.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, they don't. The dead air for this is like anticipation in the air, right?
Yeah. Let me see here.
And I did just spring this on you at the I didn't give you any warning because that's how this game works.
Yeah, I would have definitely had some better ones.
I know. You can tell me what the fuck.
Okay, so I have slept with 150 guys.
I think that statement is false.
I don't really know. Honestly, I don't have a full body count. It's definitely probably in the triple digits though. So you're probably, you could be wrong or right. It's high. I was a hoe for a really long time. So
mine's really high too. So I think we should stop judging.
But it's different. Guys always get the pass and girls don't, we always are.
It's so stupid.
I know. It's funny because I've talked to my boyfriend about it because he's one time was like asking me about it. And I was like, I honestly don't know. I'm like, it's really high though. And he is like, whatever. Like, he's like, I don't care. He's like, mine also too is high. And I'm like, I know. I was like, it's like, I'm like, it literally doesn't make a difference to me, but like for a lot of people, it does make a difference too. But yeah, I would say I'm absolutely in the triple digits.
yeah, me too. But I said false because 150 is like oddly.
Well, yeah,
it's oddly specific.
Yeah, it's such a specific.
Yeah,
number. I'm like, I know. I should have been like 153.
see, now you're learning the game. So if we ever play it again, it'll be whatever. So I feel like this is like, a draw, right? But who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Anyway, Stephanie Smith, thank you so much for being on the show with me again. Let's remind these lovely people where they can find you, hang out with you, pester you for podcast episodes.
Yes. So my Instagram for the podcast is Dirty Blondes Pod. Actually, all my social media is Dirty Blondes Pod. I really have not updated it recently, unfortunately, but I'm going to be getting back into the swing of things soon. So follow me and stay updated because I will be releasing something before the end of the year. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that gives you some time, right?
Yeah. And I also have a personal Instagram. It's Steph C. Smith. You can follow me on there if you want to just see my day-to-day shit of me posting random selfies and food pictures if you want, or occasional pictures of my boyfriend. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, Dirty Blondes is on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the podcast places that you would find podcasts. So that's where I'm at.
We will link everything in the notes for them. I want to thank you for being on the show again. As always, I had a fucking blast. It always goes in whatever direction it's going to go. And that's why I love having you on. You make like I said, you make a great friend and a fucking amazing podcast guest. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to doing it again.
Me too. I love when we get together because it's always funny.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I will see you very soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
I know. Wild episode. I try to give you guys a little heads up in the intros when there are wild episodes, but I don't want to give too much away. It's a very fine line. It's very difficult. Thank you to Stephanie Smith for being my guest 3 times on Sex Party. If you guys are enjoying Stephanie, if you want to see Stephanie again, if you're enjoying guests like Stephanie, if you're still a fan of this show, if you're still putting up with all of my chaotic craziness, there's a couple different ways you can show that love, that desire, that appreciation for more. If you are listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, Google, Stitcher, iHeart, you can subscribe to the show. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, wow! If you're watching on YouTube, I love you. I see you. You can subscribe to the channel. You can like the video. You can leave a ton of comments. You don't have to do any of these things at all. You can sit back, eat some Cheez-Its, enjoy the show, but it does help the show grow, and the show is growing. You can always catch me in the DMs on Instagram if you want to chat, and I will see you all back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @DustinRybka.